Diablo is a game that is widely known as the king of dungeon crawling, grindy action RPG goodness. It's the game that so many other games try to be, but end up failing. On the surface, all of the Diablo games look so simple, but looks can be deceiving. If you dig a little deeper, you'll find a deep and rewarding RPG that's always fun to pick up and play. But before getting too deep into the history of Diablo, we have to first understand where this game came from. Blizzard Entertainment was founded in 1991 under the names Silicon and Synapse. For obvious reasons, in 1993 they changed the name to the much better flowing Chaos Studios, based on the chaos of their development cycles. About a year later, they finally changed the name to Blizzard Entertainment. As a side note, Blizzard Entertainment has been owned by many parent companies over the years, but before Activision, who is the current holder, the company that held Blizzard the longest was Vivendi, who made the purchase in 1998. Blizzard first really realized success with the strategy game Warcraft: Orcs vs. Humans in 1994. That success of the first Warcraft game was crucial, as it really helped allow for the creative freedom of the company. And though Blizzard loved making real-time strategy games, in 1996 they decided to make an action RPG instead. This is the game we've come to know as Diablo. The 90s are really where Blizzard established themselves as an extremely special gaming company. Looking back at it, it's hard to imagine Warcraft 2, Diablo, and StarCraft all being released within a 3-year period, but Blizzard was clearly hungry to be the best game developer at the time. Now, I've always enjoyed a good beat-em-up style game, and while Diablo is an RPG more than a traditional beat-em-up game, the influences are obvious. My love for hack and slash games started with Gauntlet: Dark Legacy for the GameCube, but grew from playing games like Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. Though you can enjoy playing those games on your own, something about the late 90s, early 2000s couch co-op style just hits differently. Both games I just mentioned can easily be completed in one sitting if you and a few friends are dedicated enough to get it done. While it's possible to do that with Diablo, the campaigns are typically much longer and deeper. Diablo 1 hit the shelves in 1997. And while that was well before I ever played a video game, even then Diablo was really pushing the boundaries of the action RPG genre by heavily encouraging multiplayer and even offering online play. Now that might not sound like anything special today, but it was a big deal in 1997. What set this game apart at the time was mixing those deep RPG character building mechanics with non-turn-based combat. It was released a few months before Final Fantasy VII, which is probably the biggest RPG game of its time. And while both Diablo 1 and Final Fantasy VII mix customizable gameplay with high-quality story cutscenes that would only fit on a CD-ROM at the time, what set Diablo apart was its real-time combat. That's right, no more pressing A, waiting 10 seconds, and pressing it again. Instead, now you get to press it over and over again and see the response instantly. Though most people think of Diablo as a traditional PC game, the first Diablo even had a PlayStation 1 port. Though the first Diablo was extremely well received and a huge success for Blizzard, Diablo II is the game that set the bar for the franchise. Diablo II took what the first Diablo did well and ran with it. There was a huge focus on online gaming for D2, and not just in cooperative play but also in PvP. This is a game that came out in the year 2000 and still has active players. There are 4 acts in the story, and like the first Diablo, there's an expansion which gives you one more act. Though Diablo 1 did a good job of introducing the characters and the story, Diablo 2 did a much better job of making it interesting. The fantastic remake Diablo II Resurrected came out in 2021, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. At this time, I still knew nothing about Diablo, as I was still super young, but this is around the time I was first introduced to Blizzard games, as my dad bought me Warcraft 3: Reign of Chaos, which was one of my favorite games to play growing up. Like the first Diablo, Diablo 2 was a huge success. Unfortunately, after this game, the franchise was kind of forgotten about by the company due to the release of what is probably the biggest MMO game of all time, World of Warcraft. Now, it's important to note that I'm not really an MMO game fan. Though I have nothing against them, it's not really my style. For a while there, Blizzard was solely focusing on WoW, as the subscription-based game was continuing to grow and providing steady cash flow for the company, and it's much easier and less risky to maintain a game than it is to create a new one. For some context, WoW was bringing in over $1 billion US per year off of just subscriptions.
Wow, that's a lot of potatoes.
This is kind of where Blizzard established their still standing reputation of being a money-hungry, greedy company, and merging with Activision in 2008 to create Activision Blizzard definitely didn't help that reputation. Diablo III was my first real experience with the franchise. Though I played Warcraft Reign of Chaos growing up, I wasn't much of a PC gamer. As I said before, my introduction to this genre of gaming started with some obscure GameCube titles. In 2013, I picked up Diablo III for the Xbox 360. Now, I went into this game completely blind. I didn't look up any gameplay and had no idea what to expect. I bought this game solely based off of hearing good things about the franchise and the cool box art. I played through the whole game over the course of about a week with a friend of mine. Every day after school, we would meet up and play. It immediately brought me back to those days of playing Gauntlet with my brother as a kid, but felt way more interesting. The story felt better, the gameplay felt sharper, and you had more freedom to build your character the way you want. Barbarian, Demon Hunter, Monk, Witch Doctor, Wizard, and Crusader are the base classes, but no matter which one you pick, you have the freedom to play it in your own way. Though 10 years later this doesn't seem very impressive, only a few games like Dark Souls and Skyrim were really doing this well at the time. I almost never have the urge to start a game over right after beating it, but I found myself immediately wanting to replay certain acts and cool bosses in Diablo 3. I bought this game again with the Reaper of Souls expansion when I got the PS4, mostly just for the impressive visuals, which says a lot considering I didn't have a lot of disposable income as a high school student. Even right now I'm playing through Diablo 3 The Eternal Collection on Switch with my girlfriend, so in a way the game is kind of timeless. Diablo II Resurrected came out in late 2021. This is an extremely faithful remake of Diablo II that even allows you to switch between modern and original graphics. While I played through the game with some friends online, I feel like it's hard to go back to Diablo II after playing 3 if 3 was your first experience. While I appreciate the darker tone of Diablo II, 3 is a lot faster paced and almost more cartoony. It just feels like a more modern game. Mix this with improvements to the way you heal, inventory slots, and overall visuals, it would be hard for me to recommend playing 2 over 3 in 2023 as your first Diablo experience. Though if you were a fan of the original Diablo 2, you would love the remake. As I said before, it's very faithful to the source material, almost to a fault. I have a friend that's been playing Diablo 2 for almost 20 years now, and he feels that Resurrected is one of the best games of all time. So to each their own. So from my earlier comments about Activision Blizzard being a money-hungry company, it should be pretty obvious that I'm not a fan of predatory, greedy practices by video game developers. It's pretty easy to see a steady decline in the innovation and quality of corporate money-hungry games like Call of Duty over the past 10 years or so. Just as Blizzard was starting to clear their reputation of being that type of company, they established themselves as the king of greed with the absolutely atrocious release of Diablo Immortal on mobile devices last year. This game really made me begin to lose any faith I once had in the franchise. To touch on this a little more, I had the game pre-ordered in the App Store for over a year, so I was very much looking forward to it. I'm not hopping on the hate bandwagon here. It's actually really disappointing that this game ended up being such a greedy flop, because the gameplay and visuals were quite impressive for a mobile game. Unfortunately, it was an obvious cash grab by the company and should not be forgotten about or forgiven, because I'm sure in the future Activision Blizzard's just going to keep repeating to do this type of thing. I had very little to no expectations when downloading the open beta for Diablo IV, and to say I was blown away would be a massive understatement. Though the first day was frustrating with long wait times and broken servers, Blizzard seemed to be able to fix it by the next day. Though I only had the chance to put in about 5 hours of gameplay, I was extremely pleasantly surprised. Diablo IV seems to mix the excellent qualities of 2 and 3 into one game with obvious added depth and visual improvements. Though just a beta, this was by far the best looking Diablo in both gameplay and in cutscenes. The story seemed genuinely interesting, and seems to be more influenced by the darker themed Diablo II. Though I was only able to scratch the surface of the skill tree, it's quite obvious that the developers want this to be the Diablo game that allows you to play exactly how you want to. One barbarian can play a completely different style of game than another, and that's pretty cool. While I don't want to jump the gun and assume anything, as it's very possible this game will be absolutely full of pay-to-win microtransactions, it does seem like Blizzard put a lot of effort into producing a quality video game here. Now, I don't think my love for Diablo is as hardcore as many competitive gamers out there. I never got into PvP, I don't grind for hours on end in search of a special legendary item that will make me slightly more powerful. Instead, I like to sit back with some friends and grind through the campaign while reminiscing of old times. In a more casual setting, Diablo is a great game that doesn't require crazy amounts of focus. The good thing about Diablo is whether you are a casual fan like me or a hardcore fan, there is a place for you. Though Diablo IV has the highest starting price point of any game I've ever seen, $95 Canadian before taxes was the price tag at my local GameStop, I will still be getting it, likely on launch day, and I truly look forward to that. So what are your thoughts about Diablo IV? Are you excited to play it, or are you planning to skip out on this one? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel while you're at it if you enjoy all things RPG related. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.